Our environment is a reflection of ourselves. Question: how does nature give people tests and connections? Please explain the principle behind it. Answer: it is not nature that gives these things to us. We create them ourselves. If I am in a bad environment, it is because I have made choices that led to that environment. In order to make me aware of my mistakes, certain situations arise, and certain people come into my life accordingly. The way we live our lives determines the environment around us. If I have lived correctly, a good and positive environment will form around me. If I have lived incorrectly, situations will arise that help me recognize my mistakes. Simply put, when we live incorrectly, we create difficult environments for ourselves. When we live correctly, life becomes smoother, and the environment becomes favorable. If we face hardships, it is not because God is punishing us. God never punishes us, He only allows things to happen naturally. We often think that when we face difficulties, it is because God has punished us. But God is not an energy that punishes. He operates the universe solely for our benefit. Everything happens to help us grow and understand. That is God's role. So why do certain situations occur in our lives? It is because of the way we have lived. The frequency we emit attracts specific environments. This is why some people struggle while others thrive. For example, among our people, many have moved abroad and now face difficult circumstances. Many of these individuals were highly intelligent and had strong convictions about justice. However, justice must be pursued with full awareness and balanced judgment. Some individuals, without fully understanding the bigger picture, took sides based on their limited perspective. They participated in demonstrations, student movements, and even rebelled against their nation without knowing its full structure and future direction. These people, who made impulsive decisions in their youth, now struggle in life. Why? Because they did not base their actions on a complete understanding of the future. Instead, they followed their own stubborn beliefs and became deeply involved in a certain direction. Over time, they became disconnected from society, and despite their intelligence, they now face hardships. There are many such individuals among us. It is not that God made their lives difficult. Rather, their own stubbornness led them there. They made choices that placed them in difficult situations. What we must do now is reflect on these patterns and think about how to create a better future. If we insist on our own ways without considering the bigger picture, we will continue to struggle. This is why leaders who practice Hanjik Ingen, the philosophy of benefiting humanity, must take responsibility for studying these issues and guiding society correctly. Do not think that God punishes us. Instead, understand that the laws of nature make us face the consequences of our own actions. Our environment is a reflection of ourselves. Summary: nature does not give us tests and connections, we create them ourselves. The environment we live in is shaped by our actions and choices. If we live correctly, a positive and supportive environment forms around us. If we live incorrectly, difficult situations arise to help us recognize our mistakes. When we face hardships, it is not because God is punishing us. God does not punish, He simply allows things to happen according to natural laws. Everything we experience is meant to help us grow and understand. Our actions and thoughts emit frequencies that attract specific environments. This is why some people struggle while others thrive. Many individuals, especially those with strong convictions about justice, have made impulsive decisions without fully understanding the bigger picture. They took sides, engaged in protests, or opposed their nation without considering long-term consequences. As a result, they now face hardships despite their intelligence. These difficulties are not caused by God but by their own choices and stubbornness. Instead of blaming external forces, we must reflect on our past actions and think about how to create a better future. If we continue to insist on our own ways without seeing the bigger picture, we will keep struggling. True leaders, especially those who follow the Hanjik Ingen, the philosophy of benefiting humanity, must take responsibility for understanding these patterns and guiding society in the right direction. God does not punish us, He allows us to face the natural consequences of our own actions. Reflection novel The Ripple of Choices. The sound of waves gently lapped against the shore as Min Jun sat on a weathered rock, staring at the vast horizon. The salty breeze carried a whisper of memories, moments in time when he had stood at crossroads, unaware of how each choice would shape his life. He had once believed that life was dictated by fate, that hardships were punishments sent by an unseen force. But now, as he traced the patterns of the sand beneath his fingers, he realized the truth. His life had been molded by the decisions he had made, the paths he had chosen. Born in a humble village in South Korea, Min Jun had always been a bright child, eager to learn and full of dreams. His father, a fisherman, and his mother, a market vendor, had worked tirelessly to give him opportunities they never had. Their sacrifices fueled his ambition, and soon, he found himself studying at a prestigious university in Seoul. The city was a whirlwind of opportunities, but also of distractions. Amidst his studies, he became deeply involved in student activism. He was drawn to the cause, justice, freedom, and a better future for his country. The protests were exhilarating, the sense of purpose intoxicating. He believed he was fighting for righteousness, standing against corruption. But in his passion, he never stopped to consider the full picture, the consequences that loomed beyond his immediate ideals. His involvement soon turned into radical action, leading him to decisions that would alter his life forever. One fateful night, a protest turned violent. Fires burned, glass shattered, and sirens wailed into the darkness. Min Jun was arrested, sentenced to years in prison for inciting rebellion. The years behind bars were harsh, stripping him of his pride, his youth, and most of all, his sense of purpose. When he was finally released, the world had moved on without him. Friends had built careers, families, and futures while he remained lost in time, struggling to find a place in a society that no longer recognized him. Min Jun drifted through different jobs, unable to hold on to stability. His education, once his greatest weapon, had become irrelevant in the changing tides of the world. He felt betrayed, by the system, by fate, by God. But as years passed, the bitterness began to fade, replaced by introspection. Sitting by the sea, he understood at last, it had never been about punishment or divine retribution. It had always been about choices. He had chosen to see only one side of justice, to act impulsively without foresight. He had chosen to follow a path without fully understanding its destination. And now, he had another choice to make, whether to remain bound by his past or to carve a new path forward. Determined, Min Jun returned to his hometown, where his parents, now frail with age, welcomed him with tears and open arms. He started anew, using the lessons of his past to mentor the youth, guiding them to think critically, to see beyond immediate passions, and to weigh their actions with wisdom. Slowly, he rebuilt his life, not as a victim of fate, but as the architect of his future. One evening, as he walked along the shore, a young man approached him. "Mr. Min Jun, you always talk about choices. Do you really believe we shape our own lives?" Min Jun smiled, watching the waves crash and recede. "Yes, life gives us the ocean, but it is we who choose how to sail." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Min Jun felt a peace he had never known before. He had found his place, not in rebellion, not in regret, but in understanding. And with that understanding, he had finally found freedom.